Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be predicting the UFC Fight Night Lopes versus Silva card. Let's get into it. Starting off with the very first fight of the card, we have is Rodrigo Cinzado versus Daniel Donchenko. Both of these fighters were on the Ultimate Fighter this year, and this is the welterweight fight finale. And great fighters to have. We have Rodrigo Cinzado. He's 8-1. He fought in BFL. He was a lightweight champion. That was his last fight against Jonathan Ramsey and Samurai, and beat his opponent in the first round by TKO. Before then, he fought Dario Singorna and BFL and won by ground and pound in the first round. Daniel Donchenko, he's 11-2. He was fighting on the Niza, and he was a lightweight champion there. His last fight was against Rustam Kabdai-Bernagov, and won by unanimous decision. This was back in November of 2024. Before then, he fought Kainabek Zhangbek Ulu, and won the fight by sub in the fourth round. This was back in July of 2024. But for who I have here, winning here, I have Daniel Donchenko. He's just more well-rounded. He's just a more well-rounded fighter. But yeah, so give me Daniel Donchenko by TKO in the second round. Next fight on the card we have is Alice Pereira versus Montserrat Rendon. What a nice fight to be added. Alice Pereira record is 5-0. Her height is 5'10". Her last fight was against Samara Santos and won by decision. This was back in December 2024 on Cage Masters for the Bantamweight Championship. Before then, she fought Carla La Cedra and won by TKO in the first round. This was back in August 2024. Montserrat Rendon, her record is 6-1. Her height is 5'8". Her last fight was against Darian Zhelezenkov, Canova, God knows, and lost by decision back in March 2024 on the Rebus versus Namajunas card. Before then, she fought Tamaras Vidal and won by split decision. This was back in September 2023, back on the Fiziev versus Gamrot card. But for who I have winning here, give me Alice Pereira by decision, just because she's been more active. Montserrat's last fight was back in March of 2024, which is like a year and how many months? 6-7 months? A long time. And yeah, so give me Alice Pereira by decision here. Next fight on the card, we have is Alessandro Costa versus Alden Corian. Alessandro Costa is 14-4. His height is 5'4". His last fight was against Kevin Bajos, and won by TKO in the second round. This was back in May of 2024. This was on the Pantoja versus Urseg card. Before then, he fought Steve Urseg and lost by decision. This was back in November 2023. That was on the Prohaska versus Pereira 1 card. Alden Corian is 10-3. He's 5'8". His last fight was against German Opinada Ponce on Fury FC back in May of this year. Before then, he fought Paris Morin and got a no contest. This was back in January of this year, also on Fury FC. For me, I have Alessandro Costa by decision. This is really a competitive fight and still be very close, but I do have Alessandro Costa pulling the victory here. Next fight on the card, we have Zach Reese versus Sadiq Dumas. Zach Reese is 9-2. He's 6'4". His last fight was against Dusko Tordovic and won the fight by decision. This was back in May of this year on the Gamrot versus Klein card. Before then, he fought Azamat Bikov and lost by TKO in the first round. This was back in January of this year on the Makachev versus Moicano card. Sadiq Dumas is 10-3. He is 6'2". His last fight was against Mikhail Alsajek and lost that by TKO in the first round. This was back in April of this year on the Volkanovski versus Lopes card. Before then, he fought Denis Talulian and won by decision in August 2024. This is on the Sanhagen versus Nurmagomedov card. But for who I have winning here, give me Zach Reese by TKO in the second round, just because Sadiq Dumas, he had that terrible loss against Mikhail Alexejczyk and then didn't fight since August 2024. Yeah. I mean, he has been rough. And he is the plus 200 underdog here. So you give me the minus 235 favourite in Zach Reese by TKO in the second round. Next fight on the card we have is Jesus Aguilera versus Luis Gruel. Jesus Aguilera is 11-3. He's 5-4. His last fight was against Rafael Estevam and lost that fight by decision. This was back in February of this year on the Cannonier versus Rodriguez card. Before then, he fought Stuart Nickel and won by sub in the first round. Back in August 2024, that was on the Duplessis versus Adesanya card. Luis Gruel, he's 10-1. His height is 5'10". 5'10", 5'5", His record is 10-1. His height is 5'5". His last fight was against O'Day Osborne and lost by TKO in the second round. This was back in April of this year on the Emmett versus Murphy card. Before then, he fought Nick Piccini and won by split decision on the Dana White Contender Series back in October 2024. For who I have winning here, give me the underdog of Jesus Aguilera. I'm just feeling an underdog pick here, so I do have Jesus by a decision here. And he is the plus 175 underdog, so give me Jesus Aguilera by a decision here. Next fight on the card we have is Tatiana Suarez versus Amanda Lemos. Tatiana Suarez is 10-1. Her height is 5'5". Her last fight was against Zhang Wei Li and lost by decision. This was back in February of this year on the Duplessis versus Strickland card, Strickland 2 card. This was for the strawweight title. Before then, she fought Jessica Andrade and won by a sub in the second round. This was back in August of 2023 on the Sanhagen versus Font card. Amanda Lemos is 15-4 with one draw, no contest, either way. Her height is 5'4". Her last fight was against Isman Lucindo and won that fight by decision. This was back in March of this year on the Pereira versus Ankalaev card. Before then, she fought Verna Jandiroba and lost by sub in the second round. Back in June of 2024. This was the main event. For who I have winning here, I'm going to go with Tatiana Suarez here. How she wins, she could win by decision, she could win by sub. I'm going to go with Tatiana Suarez. I'm going to do a little sneaky one. Tatiana Suarez by sub in the second round. That is my prediction. Next fight on the card we have is Claudio Pulios versus Joaquim Silva. Claudio Pulios is 12-4. His height is 5'10". His last fight was against Farziem and lost by decision back in February 2024 on the Moreno versus Royval 2 card. Before then, he fought Dan Hooker and lost that fight by TKO in the second round back in November 2022 on the Adesanya versus Pereira 1 card. Joaquim Silva, he's 13-5. His height is 5'8". His last fight was against Dakar Close, and lost that fight by decision. This was back in May 2024 on the Pantoja versus Usyk card. Before then, he fought Clay Guida, and won that fight by decision back in December 2023 on the Dariush versus Sarukian card. For who I have winning here, give me Joaquim Silva just because of the activity, even though he hasn't been active. He has, but he hasn't. He's been more active than Claudio Pulios. And another underdog pick here. I'm loving my underdogs. I do have Joaquim Silva here by a decision. I think he's going to just edge it out a little bit. But it could go to Claudio, but I'm thinking Joaquim Silva here. Next fight on the card, we have Jose Mendita versus Dusko Torovic. Jose Mendina is 11-5. His height is 6 foot. His last fight was against Atiba Guerrero and lost that fight by TKO in the first round back in March of this year on the Moreno versus Usyk card. Before then, he fought Zach Reese and lost by decision back in August 2024 on the Cannonier versus Brahalio card. Dusko Todorovic, is 12-6 with a height of 6'1". His last fight was against Zach Reese and lost by decision back in May of 2025 on the Gamron versus Klein card. Before then, he fought Mansour Abdul Malik and lost by TKO in the first round. This was back in November 2024 on the Magny versus Parates card. But for who I have winning here, they're both on a losing streak. Could go either way, but I'm going to lean towards Dusko Todorovic. He is the minus 300 favorite. Yeah, why not? I'm just going to go with Dusko by a decision here. Next fight on the card, we have Santiago Luna versus Quang Lee. Santiago Luna is 6-0. His height is 5'9". His last fight was against Demzon Manabat and won by KO in the first round. This was in Tough Enough back in May of this year. Before then, he fought Muhammad Baidov and won by sub in the third round. This was on LXF, and the fight happened in September 2024. Quang Lee is 9-2. His height is 5'6". His last fight was against Gaston Bolanos and won by sub in the second round. This is back in May of this year on the Sanhagen versus Figueiredo card. Before then, he fought Zhao Long and lost by TKO in the third round. This was back in November of 2024 on the Yan versus Figueiredo card. So for who I have winning here, give me the underdog. I'm loving my underdog picks. So not underdog. Give me the favourite, sorry. And Santiago Luna by a decision here. Next fight on the card we have is Alexander Hernandez versus Diego Ferreira. Alexander Hernandez is 17-8. His height is 5'9". His last fight was against Chase Hooper and won by TKO in the first round back in August of 2025 on the Duplessis versus Chimaev card. Before then, he fought Kurt Holobar and won by decision back in March of 2025 on the Vittori versus Deledze 2 card. Diego Ferreira is 19-6. His height is 5'9". His last fight was against Grant Dawson and lost by decision back in January of this year on the Makachev versus Moicano card. Before then, he fought Mateus Rebicki and won by TKO in the third round back in May of 2024. This was on the Lewis versus Nascimento card. For who I have winning here, I could see a Diego Ferreira upset win here, but I'm gonna lean I'm definitely gonna lean towards Alexander Hernandez by a decision here. I just think because of the amazing knockout by Chase Hooper, didn't expect it. I knew Alexander was gonna beat Chase Hooper, but didn't expect that he was gonna knock him out. But yeah, technical knockout. But yeah, Alexander Hernandez is my pick by decision. Next fight on the card, we have Kelvin Gastelum versus Dustin Stoltzfus. Kelvin Gastelum, he's 19-10. His height is 5'8". His last fight was against Joe Pyfer and lost by decision. This was back in June of 2025 on the Dvalishvili versus O'Malley 2 card. Before then, he fought Daniel Rodriguez and won that fight by decision. This was back in June 2024 on the Whitaker versus Alaskarov card. Dustin Stoltzfus is 16-7. His height is 6 foot. His last fight was against Zoltan Ruzaboev and lost by decision back in May of this year on the Burns versus Morales card. Before then, he fought Marc-Andre Barriault and won by TKO in the first round. This was back in November 2024 on the Moreno versus Albazi card. But for who I have winning here, give me Kelvin Gastelum by decision. I just think, I don't think Dustin Stoltzfus is really that great. That's why I'm going with Kelvin Gastelum. He's really good, Kelvin Gastelum. Even though he lost his last fight against Joe Pyfer. Joe Pyfer is a really good. And then he beat Daniel Rodriguez, even though that fight was kind of controversial. Yeah, but I'm gonna go with Kelvin Gastelum here by decision. Next fight on the card, we have Jared Gordon versus Rafa Garcia. Jared Gordon is 21-7. His height is 5'9". His last fight was against Thiago Moses and won by TKO in the first round back in May of 2025 on the Burns versus Morales card. Before then, he fought Nusrat Hagapas and lost that fight by split decision back in June 2024 on the Whitaker versus Alaskarov card. Rafa Garcia is 17-4. His height is 5'7". His last fight was against Vince Piquel and won by decision back in March 2025 on the Moreno versus Usyk card. Before then, he fought Grant Dawson and lost by TKO in the second round. But yeah, for way of winning here, give me Jared Gordon by decision. I just think he's on a run at the moment. He's doing really well. Great win over Thiago Moses. Even though Thiago isn't the best, he is a really good UFC fighter, so I'll give him that. But yeah, Jared Gordon by decision here. Next fight on the card we have is Rob Font versus David Martinez. Rob Font's record is 22-8. His height is 5'8". His last fight was against Jin Matsumoto and won by decision, even though that was really controversial. That was back in February 2025 on the Cejudo versus Song card. Before then, he fought Kyler Phillips and won by decision back in October 2024 on the Pereira versus Hernandez card. David Martinez is 12-1. His height is 5'7". His last fight was against Simeon Oliveira and won that fight by TKO in the first round back in March of 2025. Before then, on the Moreno versus Usyk card. Before then, he fought Xavier Franklin and won by decision. This was back in October 2024 on the Dana White's Contender Series. So for who I have winning here, give me Rob Font by decision. Even though he had that controversial win over Gene Matsumoto, David Martinez, he is 12-1, which is a great record, and he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Rob Font is, as much as a lot of people really downgrade him, he's really good. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Rob Font by decision here. Now for the main event. Diego Lopes versus Gene Silva. Diego Lopes' record is 26-7. His height is 5'11". His last fight was against Alexander Volkanovski and lost that fight by decision back in April 2025. He was, of course, the main event. Before then, he fought Brian Ortega and won by decision. This was back in September 2024 on the O'Malley versus Dvalishvili 1 card. Gene Silva's record is 16-2. His height is 5'7". His last fight was against Bryce Mitchell and won by sub in the second round back in April of this year on the Volkanovski versus Lopes card. Before then, he fought Ezekiel Bagdasaryan and won by TKO in the first round. This was back in February 2025 on the Cejudo versus Song card. For who I have winning here, it's a tough fight to choose who's going to win. Diego Lopes, he had a great fight over Alexander Volkanovski, even though he lost that. Great win over Brian Ortega. Gene Silva, he's on the come-ups. He's been really good at the moment. I'm going to lean towards Gene Silva here by TKO in the 4th round. I just think Gene Silva is on another level than Diego Lopes, unfortunately. I think Gene Silva is probably one of the guys that would beat Alexander Volkanovski, unfortunately, even though I love Volkanovski. But yeah, I do have Gene Silva by TKO in the 4th round. And that's it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel. It'll be a massive help. Thank you for watching. Take care. Goodbye.